little bit in depth as I skim along the community, education, finance, and healthcare. Each one of them is going to have their own PowerPoint slide. What is not going to have a PowerPoint slide? Hebrew. That's because Hebrew is intertwined in every single one of these topics and every single one, every aspect of Aliyah at the end of the day. So if I even take Hebrew, what I went through today when I think about it, with my family. I have a family of 4 little kids. Hebrew dealing this morning in education, all right, taking my kids to school and then telling me I need to bring diapers for my kids, or the back and forth WhatsApps. It's Chodesh Adar now, leading up to Purim. What are the fun things that we need to bring? The WhatsApps in Hebrew, what they're telling me to bring for my kids is in Hebrew. All right, healthcare. I went this morning to the dentist. Of course, I'm speaking with the dentist in Hebrew. Finances. I called my credit card company this morning because they were charging me for something that I didn't understand what it was, and speaking to them in Hebrew. And community, of course, can be everything from A to Z in our daily life. So the Hebrew really intertwines through everything. And you may be asking me, okay, Ami, let's be a little practical. We need some help with Hebrew. What can we do? Give us some ideas. So first of all, Nefesh B'Nefesh has a wonderful online ulpan called Hebrew Connect. And I strongly advise you to look into this. It's a great way to get going with learning Hebrew. In addition to that online ulpan, you can read or listen to the news, okay, in Hebrew, TV shows in Hebrew. If you're a family with kids, there are fun kids shows such as Parpa Nechmad or Mea Shirim Rishonim, different things to help them start learning Hebrew, or things that pique your own interest. If you're an adult and you want to learn for yourself and not for your kids in Hebrew. So these are some of the things that I can recommend specifically regarding Hebrew. But now let's start jumping into some of the topics that I said I would skim, but also go into a little bit more. So when we talk about communities, you're thinking about, okay, I want to make Aliyah. Israel is a country with many communities. I want it to work. The social side of things is very, very important. What are the different topics that I want to look into when I'm looking for a community? So first of all, affordability. Real estate in Israel is expensive, all right? It depends where you live. It can go, of course, it'll depend if you want to live in a large city or in a metropolitan area. So it'll be very expensive over there. On the other hand, maybe you want to live in a small town or in a peripheral area, and that will be a lot more cost efficient. Okay, it's very important to look into for the affordability of these different places. There are different websites, such as Yad Shtaim, such as Madlen, that you want to look into, advising with friends and family regarding prices in different areas of the country. Topography, climate. Think about North America. For example, the differences between the places, all right? You want to take Chicago, you want to take Miami. One place in the winter is freezing cold, and the other place is pleasant in the winter. Same thing in Israel. Are you more of a person that is more comfortable with the cold and you want to live maybe more in the mountainous region? Or do you want to live in the coastal plains where it's a little bit warmer and especially humid in the summer? So that's also something that's important to look into. Spoke about affordability, topography, climate. We also have demographics. Now, when we talk about demographics specifically, and we can talk about, when we talk about demographics, and one of the important things that you want to look into is what is your religious preference, okay? Meaning, some places will be religious and more Orthodox oriented. Some places will be a lot more secular. In some places, there's a variety of just about everything. So, of course, that's also something to look into so you can feel more comfortable regarding your religious preference. We can also talk about age, family. What does that mean? So let's say, for example, if you have you're a family with children, you want to find a place where you have other families with children. If you are a senior citizen, all right, you're going to look into places also where you have more senior citizens. If you're a family with children, you're also going to want to make sure that you don't end up in a place where it's all senior citizens, or in a place where it's all senior citizens, or if you're a senior citizen, in a place where it is all families. Of course, there are places that are mixed. Right? I can say, for example, where I live, there's a beautiful mixture, both of families with children and senior citizens, and it's a very nice variety. Some places are more like that, and some places are less. And then, of course, you want to look into place where you have available services. Now, talk about available services. I want to bring another variable that I meant to mention before, so I'll bring it up now, and that is called Anglos. Anglos is a munach. It's a word that you should know. Anglos means olim from English-speaking countries, United States, Canada, United Kingdom, South Africa, and Australia. Now, Anglos tend to group together when they want to live in different when they make Aliyah, because of course that is your comfort zone, and that is of course totally understandable. In which case, I want to go back for a minute to the affordability part, and then I'll come to the available services, and that is places where Anglos, meaning Olim from English-speaking countries, gather together, and there's a large gathering of them, that can hike the prices up even more. So you may be looking for a community like that, but also you want to take into consideration that that impacts the real estate prices. It'll also impact the available services, which is, of course, to your benefit. What do I mean? I mean that if you're moving to a place where you have a lot of Anglos, a lot of English-speaking Olim, what you'll have over there is, for example, community contacts. This is something that's voluntary, meaning in the different cities and towns, we have Nefesh B'Nefesh Olim. This is voluntary. There are former Olim that were probably in the same place that you were a few years ago. They now have experience of a few years in Israel, and they'll say, I want to help Olim that have a lot of questions about Israel, about Aliyah, and specifically about the certain towns that we live in and that they are looking into. In which case, in situations like that, there will obviously be born places where there are large groups of Anglos. There will be more options of community contacts. Again, this is something voluntary that former Olim do. But in addition to that, and this is very important, in the places where there are Anglo centers, populated with Anglos, there are also municipal coordinators. Why are the municipal coordinators so important? The municipal coordinators are going to be so important because of the educational system. Now, we are now in February. I have little kids. My kids are now signing up to GAN. They're now signing up to, GAN means preschool. They're signing up to their preschool. Kids are now signing up to schools. January, February is the time of year that kids sign up. And you might be saying to me, hold on, Ami, wait a minute. We're only going to be making Aliyah in the summer, June, July, August. And if you have kids that need to go to the school system, you might say, so how is this going to work? Because signing up will be around January, February. That's what our friends who made Aliyah, excuse me, are telling us. How are we going to do it if we don't have an Israeli ID number, known as a Tudat Zehut, and if we know where we want to live, but we don't have an address yet, because you can't actually start renting or or you can't start really renting somewhere a lot of times, or get a contract until very close to your Aliyah date. And that's where the Anglo centers come into play regarding the municipal coordinators. Because the municipal coordinators are for the Olim. They know that there are a lot of Olim that are coming to Town A, Town B, Town C, and they know to work with you. You will be in touch with them in advance, and they know to work with you and explain to you, basically, how to sign up and when to sign up. Now, how does the educational system in Israel work? Let me just take a drink of water. So the way it works is like this. On one hand, we have the public sector, all right? And the public sector will be similar to how the public system works in the United States, meaning there are districts. So even if you arrive in August and you feel like it's the last minute to sign up, your child will end up in the educational system. They'll end up in a school because they need to be connected to school in the district that you're in. If there are 2 or 3 schools in your district, it might not be in the school, your first choice in your district. It might be in your second or third choice. But in the public sector, they need to end up in the system, and they'll end up in a school that is in your district. Okay, that is important to understand. The public sector splits up in general into three sections, okay? Three different educational background kind of schools. One is called Mamlachti, okay, which is secular. The other is Mamlachti Dati, which is secular religious. And the third is Charedi, which also has a few breakdowns, meaning ultra-Orthodox. But if that is the public sector, okay, there's also the semi-private sector, meaning schools that are regional, and to these you need to get accepted. Or you have an interview, you get accepted. They don't have to accept you, as opposed to the public school system that the district school needs to accept you, at least one of the schools in your district. The private school doesn't necessarily need to accept you. So again, how do you register to these schools if you're coming after the regular sign-up time, after I already signed my kids up for next year, but you're coming in a few months? That, as I said before, that is what the municipal coordinators are for, first of all. And they'll help you through that process. In addition to that, I always tell my olim, call the school. All schools are a little bit different. They'll tell you, wait, you need to have a contract. No, wait, you need to have your ID. So you should also, of course, be in touch with the schools themselves. Benefits for Olim children. I'll never forget how when I was 14 years old, I was called out of class by my principal because of a family of Olim from Toronto that had arrived. It was in November. And I remember, well, he turned into one of my best friends, this Soleh, but really helping him in class when he was 14 years old in 8th grade, helping him in an Israeli class. He didn't know very much Hebrew. So how does he and how do Olim get through the educational system, at least the beginning, the initial stages of coming to over here when Hebrew can be a challenge? So first of all, there are benefits for Olim children in school, but also what I can encourage very much are tutors. You also can use tutors, and that is definitely to your advantage. All right, we'll then now continue to talk about the next topic. And the next topic will be finances. Now, when we're talking about finances, you want to make sure that you're on the same page with, know what you're doing on a financial plan. Know what you're getting into. Know what your hachnasot and hotzaot are. What your income and your outcome is going to be. Now, what's over here is a budget calculator. Okay, a link to this, I'm sure you can see now in the chat. And the budget calculator, this one specifically, is for a family of 6 nefashot, 6 people who moved to Modi'in. You can see their monthly outcome is about 34,000 shekel. Please note, again, I'm saying this currency is in shekel. If you are going to be working a hybrid in the United States and your income is going to be in dollars, please fill this calculator out in dollars. And we strongly encourage that you fill this out so that you know you don't have so many surprises when you arrive to Israel on the financial level. You have a general gist of what your income and your outcome is going to be. Please note, one of the cool things about this tool, this budget calculator tool that was created by a financial company called Blue and White, is that they put into the calculation the benefits that you get as new olim, which is important because that's also part of it. For example, one of your benefits is an arnona benefit. Here's another word in Hebrew. Arnona is a city tax. You get a benefit. So that's calculated into there along with other things. And this is a very important tool to use. Many people, of course, have a lot of questions regarding employment before making Aliyah. Where am I going to work? How does it work? We have a wonderful employment team over here at Nefesh B'Nefesh. Now, it's not the employment team isn't going to land you a job, but what makes them so wonderful? They will give you tools to help and find work in your line of work. You email them, you send them your resume, you tell them what you do, you tell them what your goals are, and they will explain to you how you can transfer your degree over, various tools of how to look for work in your profession in Israel. So that is important. In addition to that, I want to encourage you to look up the Nefesh B'Nefesh job board. We have a wonderful job board, and I believe you'll be able to also see that in the chat box. And I encourage you also through the Nefesh B'Nefesh job board to also look for work. not what it's like in the United States. It is a socialized system, it's a public system, and everyone connects to it. Meaning, we have what's called Bituach Leumi, national insurance, government body. They are like the umbrella of the four different healthcare providers, or HMOs, or kupot. We call them in Hebrew kupa or kupat cholim. I'm going to use that word from now in Hebrew, the Hebrew word of kupa, because everyone's going to be asking you, okay, what's your kupa here? What's your kupa there? What kupa are you in? Meaning, what HMO are you in? What's your healthcare provider? All right, so basically there are four different healthcare providers, and when you land in Israel, you like any Israeli citizen, myself and whatnot, you will be connected to a healthcare provider. Now, how do you choose one of these healthcare providers? How do you choose one of these kupot? So there are a few variables that come into play. One is if you live in a city or in a centralized area, chances are all four of these kupot will be there. Of course, you need to check in advance, but chances are they'll all be there. All right. On the other hand, if you live in the peripheral area, you live in a small town that's a little bit further out, you need to check in advance which kupa is situated and where you're living. I just had a call with one of my future olim, literally an hour ago, and he's going to a small town in the peripheral area. And I said to him, Moshe, I'll just make up a name right now, Moshe, you need to check and make sure which healthcare provider is in that specific little town X that's in a very much of a peripheral area. On the other hand, when I have an alert telling me I'm moving to Tel Aviv, I'll say, no problem, you have all four healthcare providers over there, or you're in the metropolitan area, that's fine. You will want to talk to friends, you want to talk to family, see which one they recommend, which one they have a good experience with, and go according to that. On the other hand, if you have a health issue, you'll want to find an expert doctor in Israel that you're going to want to go to. That doctor will be connected to the kupa. Just like every doctor in Israel is connected to kupa, and that is the kupa that you are going to want to choose. Now, every kupa has different levels of insurance. Now, there's the basic level of insurance, but we always recommend that you get supplementary level because it covers so much more and the cost is very small to get the supplementary level. There is another, important variable that comes into play when we're talking about kupot, and that is the residency issue, when we're talking about healthcare, and that's the residency issue. And what I want you to do is I'm explaining the concept of residency. I want you to differentiate between citizens of Israel. You're going to be a citizen of the state of Israel. When you make Aliyah, you're a citizen and you're going to remain a citizen. You're not going to lose that. But there's another variable called residency. Now, you need to have residency in Israel, meaning bituach leumi, national insurance that is above the healthcare providers, above the kupot. Bituach leumi needs to see that your center of life is in Israel, that your residency is in Israel. If Bituach Leumi sees that your center of life is not in Israel, you can lose residency. You will not lose citizenship. You will remain citizens, but you lose residency. What does that mean? It basically means that you will not be covered by a healthcare provider in Israel and by a kupa in Israel anymore, and instead, you're going to want to make sure that you have private healthcare. How do you lose residency? So it's really case by case, and Bituach Leumi looks at it case by case. They want to see, are you in Israel most of the year or out of Israel most of the year? Are you working in Israel? Are you working out of Israel? Do you have assets in Israel? Do you have assets outside of Israel? Do you have family here? Do you have family outside of Israel? They put this all together and they want to see a theme within the first year or 2 years or 3 years. Again, it's case by case. We never know how long it'll take until they give you residency, or you're at the risk of it being taken away from you. That is regarding the healthcare system in Israel. What's important in all of this is, I'm trying to go to the next, there we go. These topics over here, just the tip of the iceberg. Each one of these topics that I spoke about has its own webinar. The amount of time that I spent now and even longer, there are Nefesh B'Nefesh experts talking about or Nefesh B'Nefesh, different experts talking about these various topics. I encourage you to go into the Nefesh B'Nefesh YouTube channel and to watch these webinars and like I said, so many more topics also that, of course, that we didn't have time for me to bring up on this webinar. In addition, today you can see the Nefesh B'Nefesh website. You can go into there, but in general, go into Google, and in Google do Nefesh B'Nefesh and an Aliyah topic. More often than not, we'll have a good article. Want you to read about it, all right? You should go into Facebook. Facebook is, of course, a wealth of knowledge regarding different groups that are connected to Aliyah, making Aliyah this year, living financially smart in Israel. I'm always recommending to Olim to look to join these groups. But you may say to me, wait a minute, Ami, I'm not on Facebook. So I'll very much recommend that you join Facebook. No, you don't need to be a social media guru. But what is very important is that you get on Facebook, join these groups, because you'll also read what different people say over there. You're going to have questions. I have Olim that turn to me with questions, but a lot of times they'll get a lot of their answers from the Facebook groups. And the wisdom of the masses and the other people, your contemporaries that are making Aliyah, or people that recently made Aliyah, is tremendous. It is really, really helpful, and I strongly recommend it. I also want to update you that there is going to be a Nefesh B'Nefesh event called Medics, and this is for medical personnel. Anybody who's in the medical world who is planning on making Aliyah, recommend that you sign up March 15th, 2026, taking place in New Jersey. You can scan this right over here, or I believe it'll also be in the chat right now, and you should sign up. And I want to finish by saying, look, we spoke about a variety of things right now. If you're saying to me, okay, you spoke about a lot of things, still at the end of the day, what's my next step? Okay, what should I move forward with? And what you should move forward with is an idea of what is your next step. What is step one now that you're taking from this webinar? What's the next thing that you're going to do, that you're going to look into, that you're going to take action to do? Okay, with that, I'm going to stop the screen share, and let's open it up to questions. And what I think I can do, I want to be able to see all of you, and I think the best thing is, maybe you can help me here. Right now, I can only see who is on the here, participants maybe. Here we go. Nope, I want to be able to see people. Or I see Ben Turjaman. You've raised your hand. Would you like to ask something? For some reason, I can't get.
Ami, so
Yeah.
Ami, just stepping in here, as a webinar, you don't see the people, all good. They're able to send in questions for the Q&A and you can answer them verbally.
Okay.
So I see that we have some questions in the Q&A and people can continue to send those in and we'll be able to answer them verbally and through typing.
Okay, let's see. You want, okay, I apologize if there was a issue hearing me. All right, I see there's a lot of links over here. I'm still looking for some of the questions. Anybody have questions, you can please feel free to chat them. All right, I see Sam Morel wants to ask something, so go for it, Sam. You want to say something, Sam? You had your hand raised, or Daniel Bloch? I'm allowing you to talk.
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. So you had mentioned residency, the possibility of losing it if we're still earning income in a home country. We're planning on going to Israel for several months to just be there and see if it's a fit for us, but we'll still be earning income back home. So our question is, when is the appropriate time to start the Aliyah process given this?
Look, in general, we always say the following, about 6 to 12 months before you want to make Aliyah, that's the time to really start the process. That's when you want to start collecting documents. That's when if you haven't filled out a Nefesh B'Nefesh application yet, that's when you want to fill out the Nefesh B'Nefesh application and submit it, and then you start working with an Aliyah advisor. All right, I hope I was able to answer your question. All right. Sam Morel, I see you're raising your hand. All right, would you like to ask something? I don't hear anything from Sam. Anybody else have any questions at this point? Nope. See, oh, Michael Kubiak, Michael Kulbeck. All right. You can, Michael. Would you like to ask something? Let's see Q&A. I see. But now I see a lot of the questions. Let's see. Let's go through some things over here very quickly. Can I show the Hebrew terms being mentioned? Someone is asking. Do you mean like kupa that I was talking about before? That was one of the words I was using. Let's see. Is there any specific webinar about benefits for adults with special needs? The answer is yes. You have a 24-year-old who uses an electric wheelchair. Yes, there is a webinar for adults with special needs, which is excellent. And you can find it on the YouTube channel, definitely. I actually watched it recently. Is there one coupon that's generally better for seniors? I see Rai is typing right now, minor health issue. And okay, so I see Rai, were you trying to answer that? Look, there isn't a specific coupon that Nefesh B'Nefesh can recommend. What I would recommend is really to speak to other seniors and see what good experience they have had. You're a doctor from Germany, is there MedX in Europe as well? The answer is yes. MedX deals with doctors from all around the world. How long does it take to settle down in Israel from the day of landing? Wow, that's a very individual question, which is very difficult to answer. That totally depends. Are you on your own? Are you with the family? Are you renting? Are you buying? It's very individual, and what I would recommend is to talk about that privately with an Aliyah advisor. Someone converted in 1998 because only your father was Jewish. What pathway should I pursue? That's not a problem. As someone whose father is Jewish, you have the right of return, and you can make Aliyah. What happens if you're employed by, let's see, in America, it's just running through the questions, employed by an American organization like a nonprofit but living in Israel? No. What happens is that you're living in Israel. If you're employed by an American organization like a nonprofit, where you're living in Israel, is something that can make you lose residency. The losing residency part is a variable of a few things. How much you're in or out of Israel. You're working in or out of Israel. All right, you have assets in or out of Israel. But if you're in Israel, physically, to the best of my knowledge, you're not going to lose residency. You've heard that after starting your application, you can make it within 2 years. If not, the application expires. No, the application for Nefesh B'Nefesh can last for a long time. There's no limit to how long it lasts. It's not up after 2 years. And there are certain documents that expire after 6 months. A visa will expire after 6 months, but no, the application for Nefesh is open-ended. Another question is you made Aliyah in the 80s. You spent over 2 years before returning to the U.S. for grad school. You had a full legal exchange, and this leads to confusion. Is there a clean way forward? You have all Israeli ID. My recommendation to you, Ari, is to be in touch directly with Nefesh B'Nefesh. That's a very individual question, and we deal with these things all the time. Also, regarding benefits, someone who's working in retirement age and working a nonprofit, I suggest going into the benefits from Nefesh B'Nefesh and seeing our different benefits. Do absorption centers still exist, and how do you connect to the option? Not really. I lived in an absorption center, but I made Aliyah in 1983 when I was 5 years old. Absorption centers for North American Aliyah does not exist anymore. Do kibbutzim take new residents these days? Is very difficult, very difficult to get accepted. If you are intending to come, someone is intending to come to for just 2 weeks to start to look at options in Israel. Is there someone who can assist when you're here in order to consider make Aliyah? So you're a couple in your early 60s, so are planning on coming to Israel for 2 weeks to start to look at options in Israel to make Aliyah. My recommendation is as follows. You need to do some research before you come. You want to check 2 or 3 places where you potentially want to live. You want to speak. Remember I spoke before about the community contacts, volunteers, advise with them a little bit about these places. Take Airbnbs. Take an Airbnb in one place for a few days, another Airbnb in another place for a few days, and spend some time over there, get immersed with the place, talk to people over there, talk to community contacts, and get a feel of the place. Is there an event or group similar to Medics for Accountants? Regarding accountants, there isn't something specific regarding accountants. The best I can recommend at this point is to speak to accountants that have made Aliyah. And in addition to that, speak to our employment team. All right. Okay. So you want to know about where you can source books for 4 parts of the Israeli CPA you want to take. You want books in English. First, ask in the Facebook group Living Financially Smarter in Israel. I think that'll be very helpful. And what you also want to do is speak to our employment team that I mentioned before. Can you rent an apartment before you make Aliyah? That's an excellent question that everybody asks. So you can. Sometimes it can be a challenge. So what some people do is they come to you and they start with an Airbnb for a week or two. And then after they're on that Airbnb for a week or two, as they're there for that week or two, they look for an apartment. It is doable to rent an apartment. You need to be in touch with the person who's renting it out. Maybe you have friends or family that can help you out in Israel regarding putting down a down payment, or you can do transfers from the bank in the U.S. To the person who's owning the place. It's very individual. And you may need friends and family within Israel to help you out. A lot of times I also recommend in advance speaking to a real estate agent about a place where you want to live, telling the real estate agent that you're out of the country and how can you help with that. The question of conversion during the pandemic, I missed you. Not exactly sure. Hi Gail, how you doing? Okay, so what do you look for on Facebook? So basically, there's a few groups that are very, very helpful. One of them is Living Financially Smarter in Israel, and the other is Olim. Okay, I remember exactly what it's called. It's about Aliyah this year. That's another thing that you can look for on Facebook, and that's okay. Do you need Israeli residency before opening bank accounts? Overall, the answer is yes. You need to be an Israeli citizen before opening a bank account. That being said, you can open a bank account before you're an Israeli citizen. I'm putting the word residence in support of Israeli citizen. Only certain banks and only very limited activities. All right. So in here, you can establish banking accounts before making Aliyah. I hope I was able to answer that question. Okay, let's see. After making Aliyah, you'll be renting your Florida home for passive income and wait to come back to us to take care of the property. Will we lose your residency status if we do that? Is there a workaround of taking care of business in the USA without losing Oleh Chadash status? It's case by case, Terry. It's case by case. That is up to Bituach Leumi to decide. That is not an answer that I can give an answer to. Like I said, they're a little amorphic about losing residency, so I will also be a little amorphic about that. And that is, it depends how much time you're in Israel, how much time you're outside of Israel. Do you have assets in Israel, outside of Israel? Where are you working? So it's not black and white, unfortunately. So I cannot answer that question. Someone covered during the pandemic and that person was deported because some of her classes were on Zoom. I do not know how to answer that question. I'm sorry. Okay. Are there any other questions coming through? I'm sorry it took me a minute to really get into with the questions. Okay. Are there any general challenges or differences making Aliyah from Canada versus the States? You are coming from Ontario. It's the same documents. The differences are where you get the criminal background checks apostille. It's at the end of the day, it's the same process. It's the same documents. In the United States, you get documents apostille from states in the U.S. and Canada will be from provinces in Canada. Otherwise, it is the same thing. Let's see what sources to seek for a one-off career. College teacher for undergrads, whom would be meant to talk to? I didn't exactly understand the question, but any employment-related questions, you want to be in touch with our employment center. Okay, what else do we have? What else does losing residency impact besides healthcare eligibility? So losing residency from Bituach Leumi only impacts healthcare eligibility. That being said, there's another residency issue, and that is if you buy a new home. You have a tax purchase benefit, and that can also, you can lose that if you lose residency. You should speak to that. By doing that, there's another way to lose residency. You need to show that you've been in Israel for over half a year. In a calendar year, you need to speak to an Israeli real estate accountant for more details about that. It's not fair for me to try and answer that on one foot. Okay? Do assets outside of Israel also include retirement accounts? Please speak to an Israeli U.S. accountant. They will give you the best answer. Okay? You don't want me to give a one-word answer, and you want to speak to the expert about that. How soon does Bituach Leumi coverage activate upon arrival? So if you're classic Ole or Ola, on the day that you arrive, if you have Israeli background or you have previous Israeli background, it's case by case. It might take a little bit more of time. You'll be in touch with your Aliyah advisor, and we'll explain that more in depth. Can you live on a boat? I don't know. I'm not answering that question. I'm sorry. Let's speak to us individually, and let's see about that. I don't know. How do you get a rabbi's letter for Aliyah if you're unaffiliated? Okay, excellent question. That's a good question. So I'll give an example of an Olav man that I spoke to a couple hours ago who was unaffiliated, and he's not connected to synagogue or to a temple. And he turned to the Beit Din of America, and he brought documents to them showing he's Jewish. He didn't tell me which documents. I believe one maybe of his breed, his circumcision, one maybe his parents' ketubah, I'm not sure, but you can turn to Beit Din of America, show documents that you're Jewish, that's one way. Another way, maybe you're not affiliated, but were your parents affiliated? Is there a rabbi that knows your, is there a rabbi that knows your parents? So that's, that can be something. You can also turn to a rabbi, and I have another Ole that was connected to a rabbi. The rabbi didn't know him before, and they sat together a few times. And in addition to talking with my Ole, he also spoke to his sister, and also, again, he brought different documents of his Judaism, and that's also another way to do it. And I do not know how to answer the question of the conversion during the pandemic where there are issues with the Rabbanut. I'm sorry. I'm not ignoring it on purpose. I don't know how to answer that question. Slicha. Your wife is a returning Olah. She was born in Israel and holds a passport. She was a baby when she left, but starting the Aliyah process. Would she not be eligible for similar benefits as me? She was born in Israel and holds a passport. She was a baby when she left. Yes, she's also eligible for benefits along with you. We get connected to an Aliyah advisor, and he or she will explain more. But they should also be, especially if she left as a baby, she should get benefits like you. You're a counselor and psychotherapist. Do you have to apply for a special license, or can you operate systematically? As a psychotherapist, if you want to work in Israel, you need to transfer your license. I think psychiatrist is being taken care of with medics. You want to look into that, and if it is, you want to connect to medics. If your children have already made Aliyah, is any of your information in the system? No. All right. Your children made Aliyah individually on their own, not connected to you. Your information is not in the system. Okay, Aaron? Time for one or two more questions. If I missed questions, I apologize. I think with that, we'll call it a day. I'm sorry if you had a hard time hearing me at the beginning. And if it took me a couple minutes, once we finished until I got into all the questions and got going. I want to wish you, let's see, any other last question? Okay. What's the benefits of making Aliyah? Do Nefesh B'Nefesh benefits and you'll get a great link. I'm serious. Nefesh B'Nefesh benefits, Aliyah benefits, and it'll explain a tremendous amount. I want to wish you a lot of Bahatzlacha. Good luck with your Aliyah process, and don't forget that first step you want to take from this webinar, you want to take with you that what is my next step? This is what I'm doing. All the best. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Ami, for everything. This webinar will be both sent to you on a recording and also will be available on YouTube. So if you have any questions, it will be there. So enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much.